If you live in 2025, you have probably heard of the word AI, which stands for Artificial Intelligence, which is just a fancy term for saying computers are like humans. Now, this human-like thing writes over 25% of Google's code, which is a pretty big deal. With that, you might think, is it even worth learning to code at this point in time? Well, before I answer that question, let's talk about why I'm even making this video. You see, a couple of weeks ago, I started to learn full-stack development, which is a combination of front-end and back-end. Whoa, what are those things, you ask? Front-end is what you and I see when we go to a website and we interact with it. Backend is what handles the logic of those user interactions. What happens when a user clicks a button, for example. Now that you know what full stack is, I made this simple web app which basically converts from one unit of measurement to another for any given value. The application is not that hard to make, but the amount of time I spent on this is way more than the time I spent watching a video. And since I'm quite proud of this project, let's talk a little bit about what I used to make this project. Before I discuss anything, please note that I'm not an expert, so anything I say, please take it with a grain of salt. For the front end, I used something called React. This basically helps you create what users see. You see, React allows you to write something called JSX, which is short for JavaScript XML, a fancy way of saying you write HTML and JavaScript together in one file. For the backend, I used Express.js, which is a framework built upon Node.js. Don't worry if you don't know what those are. You basically use Node.js to handle what happens in your application when a user does something. Since we have this AI which we can use for almost anything, I tried something called vibe coding, in which you use AI to do things for you. By AI, I'm mainly referring to ChatGPT. I asked it to do some conversions for me and then asked it to write the whole APIs for me. Although I did copy and paste these into my file, I still needed to understand what I'm doing here. In the length conversion API, I first create an empty object, then I extract the data that was sent to the server from the request, then I destructure the body into 3 different variables. I define a meter table which basically has values in relation to 1 meter, then I select the appropriate units to convert from and to. This is just a simple check. I then convert the value with some simple math. I insert all of this into the empty object that I defined at the top, then I return the object in JSON format. Other APIs work the same way mostly, so I won't go over them one by one. I keep rambling about APIs, but what exactly are those so-called APIs? Here's a reminder again, to take everything I say with a grain of salt. In my opinion, APIs are simply code which defines what happens with the data sent. You can check the source code for my application on my GitHub page, which will be linked in the description. Also drop a follow if you can. Now, to answer the original question, is it even worth learning to code now? I think it's still worth it. The reason I say that is because sure, AI can do all these things, but it is not up to the point where it can do things in a human-like manner. If you want to know how someone like me with no prior experience whatsoever made something like this, I used this website to learn whatever I did in the project and then used this website to find projects to make. The course is a full university course provided by University of Helsinki, which is free for everyone who wants to start their journey in web development. And no, you don't need an account to access it. Just visit the URL and start learning. You also don't need any prior experience to start learning because they teach you everything from ground up. It does include a lot of reading, so if you are someone who doesn't like reading too many articles, then it might not be for you. But anyways, that was it for this video, and make sure to check out my project, link in the description, and hope you have a great time out there.